The first 3 weeks of the eruption here in Hawaii, crazy things would happen in the middle of the night. A new fissure would open up and it would threaten a new neighborhood. Thousands of people were evacuated from their homes. I started the Hawaii Tracker Facebook group to help people understand what's going on and get their questions answered.
Hey, how's it going? We're live. This is Fissure 20.
We had hundreds of people all throughout the neighborhoods sending in videos, articles, and images. We spend a lot of time making sure the accurate information gets out.
This is live. There's still lava moving.
They weren't just sharing a story, they were helping their neighbor. If a family was being evacuated, my group would just jump in and help out. So it was huge. They were watching out for each other.
Hello everybody, thank you for coming. Thank you for the support from everybody.
As we go through this, we're growing closer together as a community. When tragedies like this strike, you really realize how much you need each other.
We are the Hawaiian Volcano Education and Resilience Institute, HVERI for short. A lot of people know us from the 2018 eruption of Kīlauea in the Lower East Rift Zone. Working under Hawaii Tracker on the Facebook group. Since then, we've been trying to carry on and take the lessons, the hard lessons that were learned during that eruption and try and prepare for the next major disaster that comes to our island.
Yeah, so we do that through two different programs. One is volcano education, and the other part is digital resilience, which we address through online groups on social media. So the way the two programs work together is that the social media networks end up being a distribution pathway for all the information. And having that network in place means we can provide more than just volcano education, but any other preparedness information as well.
What we were working for really came about in the Mauna Loa eruption in 2022. Within hours of that eruption starting, we had the mayor, Mitch Roth, we had USGS HVO Ken Hahn on the stream trying to help flush out a little bit of the ongoing because it's so new. It's completely different from our previous major eruption, which was 2018.
One of the things that Talmadge and I were talking about was how do we deal with social media? It was something we needed to figure out and get right. Our job is to get information to the public and make sure that the public get it as well as possible and as correctly as possible. When Philip and Dane started coming to and live streaming the meetings, it was great because we were reaching more people than we normally would. So when the eruption actually happened, we had this relationship. The interviews we did during the eruption, the most fun ones were the ones with Philip and Dave because they were more relaxed and we knew we were getting to the local community and people were asking questions. So those were the best, I think. I just want to really give a shout out to those guys and how we worked as a team on this eruption. It really worked out well and we got to a lot of people we wouldn't have normally gotten.
Aloha everyone, and welcome to our Hawaiian Volcano Tracker. Today is Thursday, August 21st, 2025. Kīlauea is still in her pause, awaiting episode 31, but we have plenty to discuss today. How's it going, Dane? How's your week been?
Oh, doing good. Yeah, we got to do a little science night on Tuesday. That was fun. And now we're here waiting in the waiting room for episode 31 yet again, right?
Yeah, another week. We're still waiting. Seems like this one is taking a while. Kind of following the pattern of the last one, but that's made it last extra long. It's been a long wait once again. So a little bit of a slowdown for us here this last month compared to the previous ones.
Definitely.
So yeah, we'll summarize all that. There's still plenty to show you guys. The summary might be a little shorter, as it probably should be, and we'll go from there. What do you think, Dane?
Yeah, if anybody has any questions, comments, throw them in the chat, and we'll try and get to them in our Q&A.
All right, let's shift our view here and get ready to get going here. All right. Hello, everyone. This is our Hawaiian Volcano Summary for August 21st, 2025. Kīlauea's 31st episode is now expected in the next 2 to 6 days, although our live view, as we currently speak, it shows lava spattering up within a north vent at 5 p.m. here on Thursday Hawaiian time. Still, persistent strong glow, the cycling of lava coming up is similar to the buildup ahead of episode 30, where we had an extended delay of the onset of the episode, even as lava was close to the surface, meaning that we have as well the chance of increased fissures and other vent changes with the next episode. The USGS HVO reports suggest that the variations in the magma supply might be to blame for this. So it could be that the pulse of magma has run itself out before it's refreshed, or it could also be that the bulk of all of this lava piled up around the north and the south vents is requiring extra pressure for it to actually erupt out as it was before. So beyond this live view, we can see that there have been other spattering bursts earlier today in the afternoon. But long term, over the last week, there's been very little variation on the crater floor. This is a thermal camera, the F1, showing all those changes contained to the vent area over here on the right side of the image. USGS drone flights earlier in the week captured this view of the lava pond within the north vent from above, within all these different lava textures for the various outflows of each episode. And we can see that previous to this, we've been seeing this all through the night as well, these spatter bursts and pistoning cycles. So let me just jump ahead to the tilt, where you can see that the recovery rate of inflation was large to start, but similar to before episode 30, we have this stagnation in the inflation rate. In the case of episode 30, that led to increased pressure to cause a new fissure before the outburst of fountains. And so we await to see what will happen for episode 31. This is different for the last two episodes than the first 29 that we see here. You can see we haven't had this long delayed pattern really since back around episode 17, where we had an abnormal lull as well. So the USGS update for today expects fountains to start between August 23rd and 27th. That's between Saturday and next week, Wednesday. Although we would not be surprised to see it come sooner, as we showed you the live view here. If it does last until Saturday, that would make it these last two episodes the two longest inter-fountain duration pauses, besides episode 16 and 17. But apart from that, everything is expected to be contained within a summit, around the pause vents. Even a new fissure that occurred was down here on the southern caldera wall within a summit area. Lava is accumulating in that area, filling the inner pit since the 2018 collapse, with no threat to people outside of the national park here. The larger threat still is tephra and VOG emitting from the pulses of fountaining. And here you see the distribution of VOG, even in this period between episodes, putting out 1,500 tons per day on average, that can distribute to the South Hawaii Island area, as well as the southwest part of Kona. Our current readings from the area from our Citizen Science Network are all in the green, apart from a few areas that have caught some of this lower level VOG between the episodes, as you see from the satellite image here. Earthquake-wise, it's been fairly quiet. There have been some earthquakes around the summit region, a little bit offset from the recent fissure location. Otherwise, as well, in the south flank and broadly around the Pahala hotspot source. Overall, looking at our earthquakes counts per week, we are still within this low, stable period that has characterized the eruption at the summit since in the 2024. We're seeing continued spreading and contraction with each episode across the caldera's north to south rim. Excuse me. As you can see here, we have over a 10 centimeter spread for this most recent pause period, and a slight contraction following the stagnation and inflation here. So that's the pattern, a lot of movement around the summit, but down on the Middle East Rift Zone by Pu'o'o, we're still seeing contraction and no signs of connection of that part of the volcano to the rest. So all is well for the lower East Rift Zone and inhabitants there for now. And now it's our Hawaiian Volcano Summary for this week. So we'll move on to our main hazard here, which is the gas. And we'll start off from this far off view. This is the KP camera off the southern side of Mauna Loa, looking south at Kīlauea, with this low-level gas blowing to the southwest here across the Ka'u Desert. That's a normal trade wind pattern that's mostly dominant this time of year here. You do occasionally see the winds change. You can see this upper levels shifting to be from the south as well. And sometimes you see the camera be flooded as well. Let me replay this here. It's flooded with whether it's weather or sometimes it's actually blowing a fog in this direction as well here. So that's the KP camera. We'll come in a little closer to this K2 camera, which is at Uekahuna, showing the overlook area and the wind direction normally blowing off like that, but occasionally you see bursting back towards the crater and towards the overlook as well. If you're going to come anytime, these are the, and gas is our main concern, then this is really the best odds, but you still have to watch out for these occasional periods where the winds can shift. Coming to the S2 camera, this is the one looking directly at the vents themselves within the crater. So for the last week, your daytime views, and once again, this way is southwest and occasionally comes and obscures the camera when the winds change there. So overall, pretty good. No big outbursts and snow fountains yet. I thought I would pull up this image to share. This is an old image from, I want to say, late 90s. So at the time, they have the emission source being here at Pu'o'o, putting out this cloud of gas. But they do outline these directions of winds that we have, right? So normal trade winds are in the blue coming from the northeast here. And that means for us here around Kīlauea that we look at these arrows, mostly this fog blows to the southwest, wraps around into the Kona area, gets caught in this onshore-offshore pattern over here in the greens. So I think it also might come over top of this ridge a little bit over here, right? And the big difference is this plume should actually be today up here at the summit of Kīlauea, right? So it's a little closer to the mountain. That helps it blow across a little easier as opposed to this stuff, which wanted to basically go offshore like that, right? So with our normal trade winds, we do expect the fog to be caught in this south Kona area over here, all through here. When we have the Kona winds, then it all shifts back, and so if our fog source is right here, then that south wind blows it to Hilo, but also through the saddle and beyond to the other. So when we see these elevated patterns in this area, that's why we point to that as being normal. And when we look at let's switch now to our VMAP forecast and put it all together here. So this is from the School of Ocean and Earth Science at UH Manoa. And they're taking the actual current wind conditions and the current emissions and combining them to put out first this SO2 raw gas layer, and then we have our SO4 particulate layer, which shows a little bit of this further dispersal of the fog. And so here you can see our pattern, our Kona and South Kona areas. Sometimes more along the coast, sometimes it gets caught in the uplands a little more, depending on conditions. But that seems to be the current area of concern for the next 48 hours if we do have one of these big outbursts. And beyond that, keep an eye on the winds is all we can really do. For now, we can look at the current measurement sites across the state. This is the state air quality site that's showing all different contributors here. And so you see everything is in the green with some higher values reported. It's not unusual, but this could be anything from particulate matter to the SO2 or what have you here. There is another version that's been updated. This other version has existed, this Hawaii SO2 index website, but this has had a refresh since I last showed it to anyone here. So what I can show you here is they're actually combining a whole bunch of data now with less filters coming through. So let me show you here what they actually have on this map. They have all the regulatory sites, which can be PM 2.5 or SO2 in this particular version of this map. Just looking at those two things. But it also has might they be deployed, right? Such as there is one over here by Lahaina temporary site. So capturing all the SO2 and PM 2.5 statewide, and that gives you a little bit better density. And you can see here everything's in the green. We're not getting numbers plotted on it like we have in some other versions. But overall, another tool we can use here. And one yellow one, let's check that out. Just there you have PM 2.5 is moderate on Ali'ilani. And so probably from vehicle pollution, you would guess. Although occasionally there are brush fires. There was a brush fire earlier today here in the north part of the island. So, you could easily pick up some of this other particulate matter as well. So that's our main hazard still. We keep checking for what conditions are. Here's purple air. Also very reliable with a good density where we can see that problem spot here in Kīlauea. Okay, more broadly, the national park also has an air quality website. Interestingly, this seems to be going some kind of revision. They note that the page is temporarily out of service and points back to that SO2 state website. But even still, it is actually online and everything looks in the green. Here you can see by the charts for the last 24 hours and in the map view as well. All the areas around the national park all still in the green. But if there are any issues, then you can tell that they're working on it actively, which is great. Windy SO2 layer. Our patch SO2 that floats above us is diminishing. It's been a couple weeks now of it just dispersing rather than globally, but it's still noticeable there. And coming to the Mounts project, here's just the last week of images. You can see some dispersed views of SO2 and occasionally one of these captures of a low-level SO2 hugs the ground for this in-between episode emission phase. There's another version of that. And yeah, not so much to see there. So those are really all the graphs summaries we can share. What's up, Dane?
We are having some kind of weird issue right now, and I'm not sure. It seems to be existing between our streaming software and YouTube and Facebook. That's causing glitching and stuttering and snapping and all kinds of mischief. Desynced voices. It's kind of bad. And yeah, you can see the chat talking about having to do something about the audio, but I'm not sure what to do because in studio, our connection's perfect. You sound, no problems between me and you. But on playback, it is bad. And we haven't encountered this issue before. So I'm struggling to figure out what the issue is.
All right.
Maybe
I just...
okay, chat. Is it me as well? Am I stuttering? Am I glitching? Is my voice cracking up? Does it have the same issues with feedback or whatever have you? No. Interesting.
Try it.
Maybe you leave and come back into studio. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there right now because it seems to be not me, and it's not you to me. It's you to going out to the rest of the internet that's having issues. For
All
some
right,
reason.
I will be back.
All right. And I will talk about VOG.
Well, my thing's gonna leave with me. You realize, yeah?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about Pohoiki then, since we're gonna do that anyways. Give me a second. Kind of going out of order now, but hey, and I'm not sure the chat is up. Let's go ahead and take a look at some Pohoiki things. So here we have, we've had a lot of developments happening down there, and here's a time lapse since the 9th of August. This is about when exciting things happen. We have the water coming over the berm there, changing the shape of it, those big waves from the south. And those continue, but we begin work again. It's been over a month since any work has been really done down here. And, you know, this is a big job, and there's been some changes that have come about more recently, mainly to the far right side of the screen here. More material was determined to needed to come out of there in order to make the boat ramp function. So they are now going to start that process of getting everything out of there. But first, they got to rebuild that berm to be able to get over there. So they rebuild the berm, and I think they were afterwards, but wanted to show everything here. There's a lot of time in between the actual work. Go and working that right side. There we go. We can see them clearing that. This does clear out a channel to that warm pond that in Second Bay. And we can see them continuing their work there, taking out as much material as we hope they can get out as much as they can. Hey, Phil, I decided to do Pohoiki early. Now, maybe do a test and let's see if it's working again.
Yeah, if you want me to jump in, here's
ahead.
my little test.
All right.
See what the chat says and let you keep going.
Yep. All right. So that was the whole work, the past 2 weeks, a little bit over. But now I want to just show the work days, right? Let's just look at when they're actually touching the thing. So I did want to show those waves come over because the water is really changing the shape of it, and that's going to be the first thing that they have to address in order to get over to this side. So they fix over on the berm. We skip ahead, and then they start pulling out all this material on the right side. And they're trying to really make it such that it's not such a funnel towards the ramp that might amplify wave action. So they're taking out a bunch of extra material over there. Did have a video posted on Tracker, wanted to highlight them doing that work, right? And just a ton of material out there that they're moving, but the more the better that they're able to get out of there.
Can you blow that up in it at all?
Kinda. It doesn't like me doing it. These vertical videos on computer don't handle very great or scale. All right. So yeah, just wanted to show that. And then we did get news today. This was posted on Hawaii Tracker this morning that the Goodfellows crane, that was the long-awaited crane to finish out the job, is making its way down there. It'll be on site. There is a period in which it needs to be assembled, right? It doesn't come ready to go off the truck. So that'll take, we're told, roughly a week. But early September is when they're starting to breach the channel, and that's when a lot of the interesting parts are going to play out. And really, that's our... Oh, go ahead, Phil.
Bigger Dane. I'm gonna get my glasses to get improved here. I think I need to get those guys to come back and sponsor us again.
There you go.
All right, there it is.
So yeah, that's Pohoiki update. We're continuing, and the important bits coming up here in a couple weeks. That's going to be the spot where the footage is really going to be interesting. Now, what did chat have to say about? Did it fix you? That's better, I hear. Now it's Dane 2.
Yeah.
Maybe I have no idea what's happening. There's got to be something between StreamYard and the Ebb site. Oh,
Well, I would say we could probably keep going, I suppose, and just wait and see, huh?
I guess so. Nothing else we really can do that I can see.
Let's see. We got this new feature here. I can throw some of these comments on our screen here. Looks like people are saying it's okay now, so we will carry on for now.
Right.
Don't touch it.
All
right. Won't touch it.
About to make me superstitious on what's going wrong on this thing, because I really do not know.
All right, so I'm going to shift us to some Kīlauea observations then. And am I on stage? Yeah. Let's see.
Oh, sorry.
All right, so start off. This is a view of the S2 camera. That's pitch black, is how it looked at nighttime about a week ago. So moving forward from the last week, just the nighttime views from this camera. Can't really see much of anything until the glow starts popping in here just before the weekend. It gets brighter. We actually have reports of spatter and strong glow on Sunday night before tonight. And then it comes up once again tonight. So that's the S2 camera. Not the greatest view there. We can try the V1 camera, nighttime views as well. So this is the one pointing straight at it. So you can see a little bit more clearly the glow there. Get a little brighter there over the weekend. And then actually some lava reflection glow within there. You can see some of those wall rocks lit up pretty well. And that brings it to just this morning where we actually had some of that spatter visible. Here's a view from the V1 from this morning. When USGS notes in their update at around 2:40 a.m., they saw some of the spatter starting to come up here. So this is still the gas pistoning cycle, as we imagine that those slugs of gas moving up through this very dense but still liquid lava. It's dense because it's gas poor, so the gas lifts it up, finds some way to wiggle through it, bursts out. As it's bursting, it's throwing up chunks of lava to cause a spatter you see here. And at some point, enough gas makes its way up that whole slug of gas poor magma then drains back down. And that's your pistoning cycle as it's happening there. So oftentimes when we see that larger slug of gas coming out, we see that a lot of gas coming out of the vent with a lot more spatter and brightness from the vent all at the same time. And at some point afterwards, it kind of quiets down, and as the cycle goes on and off and on and off like that. And so that was last night. And as we showed earlier, just a few minutes before we went live. And even as we were going live, I saw it happening again, but didn't have time to clip it there. I'll probably rewind the camera here in a few minutes if we're not seeing it. But so that's the V3, or is it the V1, I should say. And let me jump us to the V1 live right now. 5:30, and look, it looks like it's actually, again, doing the same thing. I can see the lava surface right there. I wonder if it's high enough I could possibly be finding that exit channel over there. Nothing we can see here from the V3, where it might be coming out through there more or less, right? V2, too far away to see right there. But back to the V3, what I want to show is the V3 nighttime views as well. So this is a V3 that night last weekend, where you don't see a whole lot. But it turns out that on the 15th, they switched camera modes and put it into low light mode, black and white. So suddenly, this camera from the 15th now has the best views of this nighttime glow. You can see the before and after right there. So let me play for you guys what it actually looks like this past week. Here's a switch on. And you see the vent itself down here, but also these cracks on the spatter surface above the vent. And all this stuff we know moves and kind of slides, but you see all these cracks also glowing through time. And then also you see where the lava has been bursting and spattering onto the inside part of the vent wall here too. So something to keep an eye on if you haven't been watching the V3 camera at night. This is a different view now, but they've switched modes for it, and maybe we'll start showing this for our nighttime views going forward, as opposed to our previous version. This is a S2 camera where even at the best of times, it was just a little spot of red right in there, right? Not a whole lot compared to what we're seeing there. So what else can we share visually here? We have the F1 thermal camera. This is the whole last week. Once again, you see there's the change in scale just based on what clouds are out and how much sun is shining in the rocks. Most of the heat's coming from the center of the crater here, where it's the remnant heat from the lava flows themselves and not sun heating at the rocks in the rim, like you see here in the foreground. So not a lot of change. Maybe you see a little bit of this extra lava on a lip occasionally, but it's pretty unspectacular, we'll say. Yeah, you do notice the camera shakes a bit, and a lot of the cameras are having this effect this past week. Seems like there's been some wind or some something for the cameras to deal with over there in that regard. So let's turn to the KW camera. This is the same view as that thermal camera, but now visible. And what I've done is just take the noon image from each day for the last week and just cycle them here, right? So in the foreground, you can see all these little rocks that are loose, dancing around, likely with wind as well. You see the different views of looks like the vent is fuming, but it's actually just cycling through the daytime views. And to see much, we really got to zoom it in a little more. So there's our vent. And you can note that the vent isn't really changing as much. Maybe this back part seems to lower a little bit here. But like some of these features, the crater wall doesn't move at all. Stuff doesn't move. But in relative terms, you can see that areas of the middle do seem to sag quite a bit. And over the past 2 weeks here, have really been deflating quite a lot. When we have fountains that are not very high, as was the case during episode 30, reaching only 50 meters, that's what, 165 feet or so. A lot of the gas gets mixed into the lava flow itself, and that makes the lava itself very frothy. And so rather than a lot of the gas being vented into the air and blown away just from the sheer jet force, it's mixed in the lava flow. The lava is almost spongier, and over time that gas can coalesce and escape. Right? So you see the sagging of the surface over the week here near the vent. If you go further over, this whole middle section, all through here, all this is all sagging. You see it on the back over here as well. It's kind of everywhere, really. And you don't see it more so in the foreground in these areas here. You also can see, because of this degassing, areas of gas deposits, gas precipitates, right? Sulfur and gypsum crystals, for the most part, are growing here on these cracks. Look at how yellow that one is. A really sulfur-rich volcanic gas escaping through there. But there, you see it over here as well. All these different patches where the gas is coming out, and you see these changes in coloration. Maybe this one's more of a shadow there, but here's some more of that. And here, these yellow patches appearing here as well, and over there, all through here, lots of places, right? On the far end, we don't see a whole lot. A little bit of this sagging, but really, what we're not seeing, what we're possibly looking for, is lava injecting underneath the crust, going elsewhere. And we have seen this in the past from these views, but we're not seeing them now. Here's a reverse angle of the B1 camera. Similar story. If I zoom away in, what you see is the initial sagging, deflation following episode 30. And since then, it's basically sitting still here for most of the last week, apart from growing these gas deposits. Once again, different view, but more gas there. This is always all in 1 week. So pretty fascinating, but no magma injecting under this eastern part of the crater here. So continuing, let's see, we showed you guys, I'll show you, maybe I showed you guys the other view, but here's what the spatter look like from this camera. Is it going? Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot to see there, but back to our live views here, the V3 and the V1 camera. So that's where we are. We're in this watch and wait and see. We do have a few more images to share for you guys in this first half of our segment here. And one is this release from the USGS of the unmanned or uncrewed aircraft system or drone flight and staging they had last week. So here's a first image, shows scientist Mike Zoller with park rangers and 2 researchers from University of Colorado. Here they are spotting for birds and other aircraft while the drone is prepared for launch. All this is happening under park permits with park supervision, as you can see here, the park ranger. And that's how they were able to get this view looking straight down into the north vent during one of these high points in the piston cycle, like we are seeing today. Scientists estimate the lava pond measures approximately 50 meters or 50 feet across. And it's hard to get any sense of scale, but 50 feet across is their estimate for that opening right there. Okay, so let me shift to the better version, higher res version of that there. So there's another USGS scientist. You can see there a similar view, the lava surface coming up in the north vent. And here is a capture of one of those spatter bursts in the north vent right there. And finally, spatter burst. Photo taken looking across a large tephra deposit accumulated on top of the crater wall. It's about 75 feet thick, or 23 meters. That small bright spot is a geologist who's about 6 feet tall. So there is that view again, slightly better resolution. You can see how tall this whole deposit of tephra is on a crater rim here near the vent. All right, so I think that gets us through our observations. We'll come back with more monitoring and a little bit of monologue here after our community corner.
Right. Yeah, but before we jump into that, I figured I'd just talk about the Kapoho crack. We were planning to do Pohoiki here, but let's throw in the Kapoho crack thing because that was released by DNLR recently. You see here the post by DNLR. DNLR just urges caution near lava lands and coastal areas on Hawaii Island. Basically, there's cracks forming out on these lava deltas nearest the coastline, and these cracks show the area is not stable. They're getting pounded by the ocean for years now, for 7 years. We expected some erosion to happen, and one thing about Puna is if you go around and start looking at the coastal areas, you'll see a lot of sea cliffs, a whole lot of sea cliffs, almost exclusively sea cliffs. At a point where this is kind of witness to that whole process, in my opinion, at least. But they're urging caution. Don't be out on these things. There is a video I wanted to show that they released, just showing some of these void spaces that exist out near the ocean and some of their proximity to everything else. So we'll show that they're not far from Pohoiki. On this angle, you can see they're pretty close to the water, but not too close. But everything's shifting and moving and unstable, so to speak. So they're advising.
So they're looking through the crack and they can see the ocean down there. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that's what's happening. And then they're showing the Pohoiki beach. So this is not far. This is just on the point where dead trees would have been. Right. You can see the lifeguard stand right there. That's pretty close. So that whole area, I would suspect, is in a similar state, more or less, The one thing that it was interesting is we had areas that were shallow before, and then the lava built out upon it, and then we had areas that it got really, really deep that the lava built up on. So I'm wondering which is more prone. I would assume the newer areas that are bigger are maybe more prone potentially.
And I believe this is near that thickest map of lava, right? I don't have a lava thickness map here handy, but I'll try to find it. But I believe that there was one spot where it might have been like 900 feet thick or something, and it was right off of the point right there.
Right. So it's kind of the first to go is those super deep areas. But here you can see, that down through the void, you can see the ocean hollowing it out. And if anybody's ever done a water tumbler or anything like that, it's amazing how much work water can do, especially when it's the ocean onto unstable new stuff. So yeah, they have a bunch that, I rewrote this when we posted it, but they are, it's taken well that they're putting out information advising people about the instability of these things. Like, definitely agree on that if you don't know, don't go.
I found the map.
All right, let me go ahead and remove mine, and you can toss yours up.
All right, so here's the final map of lava flow thickness from the 2018 eruption. And let's zoom into this corner back down in here. And so the red, 784 feet, was the thickest part. It was this whole zone right through here, right? So there's another little section right over there. It's an orange.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's what I think they are, is that little section. That's where that perspective looks like to me, is right in there.
Somewhere right in here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, with the bay being right in here.
It might even be closer on the edge of the yellow even.
Yeah, somewhere in here.
Edge left. Yeah, somewhere in there even.
Yeah. But right within, seems like, I'm not sure how wide it is. How far it was from the cliff, from the sea cliff? 50 feet or something?
Probably 20 feet, maybe a little more even.
Maybe. So yeah, not that many meters. Yeah.
Significant amount.
Right. Yeah, so especially in these areas, as you see here, and this is the southern end. Let me zoom it back up, right? All of this over here, north to Kapoho, is also very, very thick.
Right.
Offshore there. So yeah, definitely watch out for those changes. And yeah, it is interesting to see the transformation happen, in person, live, so to speak, but you don't want to be caught in the middle of any of these pieces of land breaking off, which is something we'll hear again, maybe right after our break here from the USGS and their Volcano Watch. We'll leave that tease out there.
And we know that there's trails out there in that general vicinity, and it's like, just because there was a trail there and that it's been used for maybe 4 years or something like that, doesn't mean that it's stable just because it's been used for that long. These things are getting eroded, so it could build up to a point, and then eventually there's something that snaps the camel's back, so to speak.
Right. And especially any of these times after big storms, big waves, right? When you have these strong southern swells, such as the one that just reworked the berm down at Pohoiki, you gotta wonder if those might have also moved some sediment near the base of these cliffs that allows them to start cracking and showing that a little more easily here. So definitely watch out there, right? And yeah, it's gonna be the same story at the summit, where big chunks of land might fall off. There might be trails people are using, but maybe you shouldn't be out there because you might end up going for a plunge, we'll say.
All right. Yeah, now we can get into community corner.
Sounds
go
good.
ahead. Get that up on screen. So yeah, filling in for Lou, who is on vacation currently, but we have a little bit of community corner set up. Mostly a lot of stuff is the same here. We got the Kīlauea visitors, the renovations going on up at the summit, the renovations at the trails, but we'll get into those individually here. Don't get into the yellow jackets because that's a pretty persistent issue. All right. So we do want to encourage people to stay in bounds, so to speak, that there's plenty of views that exist all along the caldera in areas that are open to the public. So plenty to choose from in the what we call the lava stadium, that we encourage you to use those and not go out of bounds, especially don't submit them to a Hawaii tracker if you do go out of bounds. And we
You
see
don't have to go backstage. Like right in front of the stage is the best view anyways.
right. Backstage is kind of obstructed anyways, but
yeah, and dangerous, and makes us all worry about when we're going to hear about someone getting really hurt out there.
Right.
Yeah, I hope it doesn't happen.
So here you can see the types of signs that are out there that let you know what is in bounds and should kind of mark where is out of bounds. So keep an eye out. The newest thing is that there is some roundabout realignment work coming up on Monday, August 25th through the 27th, which may or may not be. It's in the window currently from USGS, but with the activity that we're seeing, we don't know. But anyways, the road will be closed, the entrance to the park on those days. So they're going to be bringing people in through KMC, and you can see the map there. This is also posted by the National Park Service today. So if you want to check it out there.
So it's the exit of the park. Yeah, you come in the same way, but then going out, you
right,
go out the opposite way.
Yeah. Right. So going to be a little bit of a detour, but they're announcing it now. So if you are going to be up there, just be aware. It's a little bit different.
Follow the signs, follow the rangers' guidance. I'm sure that they're prepared for confusion.
Part of the confusion has been the move of the Welcome Center over to the Kīlauea military camp. They're set up over there and clearly identifiable now, able to go in there. And it's even a bigger bookstore, really. So it's kind of nice in some regards. So definitely go over there and check them out. There's a lot of helpful information, and park rangers stationed there as well. So, and if you want to know how to get there, it is at KMC. So you go through the entrance, follow the way down, and then eventually be on your right side.
KMC being the Kīlauea military camp, in case anyone doesn't know.
And there is still no potable water inside the park. You can buy water, but it's advised to just bring your own water, bring plenty of it. Just knowing that with all the repairs going on, it's hard to find. And the Highway 11 droll replacement is still going on. And these poles are quite old and redoing the whole infrastructure out there. So if you see tree trimming or the big bags of the big white bags on the side, just know that those are redoing of the power infrastructure. We do have some closures still in effect. It is very dry out there. We've been keeping track of several fires that have been taking place, and thankfully none of them have escalated, and none of them have really impacted the park either, but the threat remains, and there is a unrelated temporary closure of Kīlauea Trail to repair the trail, making it safer. And this is still going on Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. The trail's still open on Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays. So if you want to go enjoy it, those would be the days to do so.
Yeah, and it's a loop, right? So it's just that's just one of the ways in. So there's still the other way around and in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of the most popular hikes in the park.
Yep. Monololo Road still closed. There's a fire threat up there. They do have, as far as I know, campgrounds remain open, but campfires and open flame cookings are prohibited. So it is very dry out there, so be careful. And then Helena Poly also closed, or Helena Poly Road closed, and motorized vehicle, but open to pedestrians and bikes. And this is from the gate past the Pohoiki trailhead to Helena Poly Overlook. Very dry. And Life on the Edge still ongoing. Happens 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 1 p.m. Go check in with the Kīlauea Welcome Center and talk to the rangers there for information if you are interested. And the weed pool is happening this weekend, the 25th 2025 community weed pool. Malama Mauna Kea volunteer invasive species weed pulls. So this is going to be taking place at 9 a.m. at the Visitor Information Center. Wrap up around 1 p.m. If you're interested, the Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship be the place to go. And if you would like to receive our newsletter when the next episode begins, we're watching precursory activity now, but eventually fountaining will happen, and we will put out an email letting people know that, hey, it's time. And if you want to be a part of that, it's hveri.org/subscribe.
There's plenty of guys that are watching on their own, but if you're one of the guys who would rather have someone just tell you and do something else until then, the email listserv is for you.
All right. And we did want to thank our community or our sponsor through the County of Hawaii, the VIVI grant program, Grant and Aid, and keeping this program funded. Appreciate their ongoing support over at the County Council. All right. And I do want to thank everybody that tuned in today. The likes, the subscriptions, the shares, all that stuff really does help. And keeping this program and our other programs, digital resilience and youth development, going. We'd like to thank everybody that tuned in, but we also had some donations come through on Super Chats, Raven with a $10 donation, and Norm as well. And we do not have Lou here. You might be wondering where he is. Again, he'll be back soon, in a couple weeks. And
Shout out to Lou and to our interpreters who are not here today, but we appreciate and miss. Those guys work hard to deserve a break, for sure.
I don't have the data from there. If somebody did donate to hveri.org/donate, we really appreciate it over there. We do encourage people. But that's one thing that I didn't get to with Lou, Lou being gone today.
We'll catch you up next week.
Yep, catch you up next week. All right, I think that gets us through it, and we can go back to the second half of the presentation.
All right, thanks, Dane. So we'll start off with Volcano Watch here now on our back half, because it has all to do with Kīlauea monitoring. So we might as well hear it from the horse's mouth first. And so, fringes and fractures for episode 30. The fringes refer to their satellite images, their INSAR, and fractures to this new crack that opened up, new fissure and associated crack as well. So to start off, here's an image. Let me give you the full screen version where you can see it all. Image August 2nd, August 10th that captures episode 30. Normally they're seeing just the effects of like inflation and deflation, each of these cycles. But we actually had a new fissure, which they have drawn on here. So this little white line right there, that is the length and location of that south wall fissure. Right? We know that the fissure also went across a crater floor. I don't know how far, maybe not quite that far, but some distance as well, like that, and up the wall. But they're noting the location of the fissure there relative to the north and the south vents, and to these earthquakes that occurred coincident with the opening of that crack. Right, so it's interesting because when I had seen this crack from the camera before, it looked like it was almost just kind of going straight up. It's hard to see the tilt and the angle of it, right? From this point of view like this, let me zoom it in even more. There's a little crack, right? It actually doesn't look that far off a trace of some of these crater cracks. Like you look at the shape of the crater like this, kind of feeds right in like that. Right, so it's almost like one of these wall cracks. It just happens that the wall has these jogs and jags, right, where it steps over. And so maybe, you know, there's all these different concentric ring faults, right, that are allowing this almost like a sheath to slide down where the caldera is collapsing. And there seems to be one of those that got activated. And that's the first really interesting thing to note from the location here. And just what's the word? Consistent with that, we see the fringes right here, this kind of rainbow pattern that shows the edges of either side of this crack moving and moving permanently, leaving this offset in the ground from between August 2nd and August 10th. Right, that's basically how this works. That's just the image itself, but let me come back to the article here. And credit goes to Cosmos SkyMed, second generation. There we are. All right, so where do I want to pick this up? Well, maybe I'll just read you guys the highlights of the thing here. So while monitoring data has shown some changes during and between lava episodes, much of the eruptions displayed consistent patterns overall. The two vents, eruptive vents, north and south vents, in the southwest part of the crater have erupted fountains feeding flows onto the crater floor. They have erupted alternately or simultaneously, and their geometries have changed over time as the cones grow around events, for example. Nonetheless, the deformation pattern has been consistent with inflation leading up to a fountaining episode, followed by pressure release and deflation during the fountaining itself. The dominant seismic signal has been tremor, a signal associated with fluid movement such as magma or gas. Tremor has been weak and occurs along with low-frequency thumping between episodes, then transitions to high-intensity eruptive tremor during the fountaining. Notably, volcanotectonic earthquakes or brittle fracture earthquakes have been infrequent around the modern caldera during this eruption, resulting in overall low earthquake counts. Episode 30 marked the most significant change in the current eruption. It began as usual with lava overflowing the north vent just before 1 a.m. August 6th. However, instead of transitioning to a roaring eruptive tremor and steady deflationary signal, earthquakes began occurring south of the vents near the southern caldera walls. These earthquakes were accompanied by a brief 30-minute crack opening signal observed by a tiltmeter station directly to the south at a location known as Sand Hill. This pulse of earthquakes was short-lived but clearly indicated shallow rock fracturing, along with nearly 2 microradians of tilt. They preceded the opening of a new fissure to the south against caldera wall about 15 minutes later. And so you note the crack opening first, then the lava that probably caused a crack to open, pushing its way through the crack and eventually reaching the surface. Following the opening of the new southern fissure, tiltmeter's transition is showing deflationary motion typical of fountaining episodes and consistent with the rest of the Kīlauea sensors. Earthquakes then subsided with only a few events occurring in the region over the next couple of days. So we saw the interferogram. We also have this image. There it is in full view. And this is taken by geologist Matt Patrick, up on the caldera rim where he's able to walk around and put down his pocket knife here for scale, showing where this crack that opened the fissure actually cracked through the entire southern caldera wall, reached the surface of the ground up on the rim, and caused some of this tephra to fall into the hole as it was opening and shaking. Pretty incredible to come across this afterwards, right? It's a little bit like the old Sarlacc pit from Return of the Jedi that we see again and again here in Kīlauea features. But they're really amazing evidence. Sinkholes formed due to underlying cracks opening as a result of the new fissure in the south wall of caldera. And so they note that the INSAR image shows the ground moves southwest towards the satellite on one side of the fissure and to the northeast away from the satellite on the other. That's shown by the repeating color cycles called fringes. The abrupt termination of some of the fringes suggests the ground moved along existing caldera ring faults, and ground observations confirm that new cracks were also created, extending well beyond a new fissure onto the rim of the crater. These observations indicate that the fissure was fed by shallow magma, less than a half-mile or 1 kilometer deep, that intersected the surface at and near the southern wall of Kīlauea. Right, so really fascinating. They really can nail this down to being your typical, almost like from the rift zone, right? The difference being the summit region has all these different magma bodies, and the fissures can come from anywhere within there, right? When we normally see the rift zone, we have like a more established depth of magma transfer, and that is that less than half-mile or kilometer deep, and we kind of often see that same pattern. So we're seeing almost that rift-like pattern at the summit for this event, right? Is what this is, how I'm reading this right now. And so that's really the biggest thing, is what might these changes mean long term? And here they note that episode 30, behavioral changes, serve as an important reminder that while the current eruption has appeared consistent and repetitive, volcanic systems can evolve rapidly, potentially leading to new hazards in areas surrounding the eruption site. And so here is where we link back to what we were just talking about at Pohoiki. At Kīlauea summit, new fissures and cracks may form, and large fractured cliffs may become unstable and suddenly fall into the caldera. This underscores the hazardous nature of the closed area west of Halemaumau International Park. While residents and visitors enjoy the beautiful spectacle the eruption has provided, safety should always be a priority, and visitors should heed National Park Service guidance. So we keep repeating this. There's a reason we keep saying the same. Everyone should stay in bounds. You can see it well enough from there. That's where you can be the safest, because unfortunately there are people breaking the rules, and we hope that it doesn't lead to anything catastrophic here, right? But we're seeing more unpredictability, less stability overall across the whole system is what this is all telling us. And if there's any time to be extra careful, it's now. That's the other thing they're saying too, right? Without saying it outright. So please be extra careful. All right, so that's really the Volcano Watch this week. We'll switch into the rest of our monitoring segment here, and starting off with this INSAR series from the Mounts project here. So we've been looking at this for a while. So we actually had this image of the fissure location open to share with you previously. And last week we shared where it looked like things had shifted a little bit further to the east with that particular take. And then back to this most current last week, we don't see that quite as much anymore. If anything, we're seeing the sagging of these parts of the caldera floor is really the only signal, with not a whole lot of other signal here, really. This big blue area in the middle of the green, if you go towards the center, green to blue is away. So this is actually a big deflationary, like a sagging signal. So we're catching these last few days of the stagnant, where it stopped inflating and started deflating a little bit. And that's centered over this area right over here, which is really, really fascinating that it's happening there, right? And interesting, we're not detecting, at least according to USGS reports, that magma is going anywhere else within the system. So a little bit curious, it must be going somewhere within this area, filling some space that's created maybe from 2018, maybe in some other way. But it's not registering any signals, and it's not registering the signals where it matters, which would be on a rift zone towards people. So that's the little extra we can add to the INSAR here, on top of that great USGS article. And we'll move to the USGS text updates here, and I'll highlight just a couple or three. Here's the one from today, update today, saying that only minor inflation was recorded over the last 24 hours, with the fountains likely to start between August 23rd and 27th. That's just the first level surface read. Let's see what else we can get here. Strong low has been persistent overnight. Spatter was visible also since then. Let me skip past here. We're still putting out SO2 between 1,200 and 1,500 tons per day, typical of these inter-episode pauses. Nothing is visible on the rift zones. The deflation they recorded prior to episode 31 upcoming here is similar to the one before episode 30. And what they're saying, which is really interesting here, is this is related to a variation in supply rate. So we've gone through, is magma injecting elsewhere under the crater floor? Is it going to the rift zone? And we're not seeing signs of any that happening anywhere. And when you eliminate all the other suspects, the one that's left is there is some change in the supply rate as option number one, right? Option number two being, if increasing vent elevation is factored into the model, then that also affects when you expect pressure to be enough to cause the eruption to resume, right? So, and there's a lot of stuff written in here, but I try to boil this down. I mean, basically comes down to all of the lava piled around the vent within the crater, right? That's a bigger weight that can hold in more pressure. It might take more pressure now for it to actually build underneath there to actually shoot out of there. And that extra pressure might be enough to then cause these cracks that might result in new fissures or changes in the vents. That's what they're really getting at, this extra unpredictability that we're seeing in the report over the last few days here. So here they say that it might, where was it here? Related to variation in supply rate, but not to the point that we're not right on a knife edge ready to go if it does resume at any moment in time. And then what's interesting is that they note the window to be between the 23rd and 27th if modest inflation continues. But if the increasing vent elevation is factored into the model, then they delay it by a day to August 24th to the 27th. Right, so remember, these are all just models. It's all just best guess. The models are only as good as what we put into them, and we're not capturing all the variability that's naturally in the system here. So it's just the best guess, basically. And so any changes in inflation rate or periods of no inflation cannot be forecast and will delay the onset of the episode as well. And here they note that they've switched the V3 camera to infrared mode at night. And continuing here, the injection of a shallow dike resulted in a new fissure vent at the onset of episode 30. Dike emplacement in the South Caldera suggests that eruptive pressure continued to increase as the vent elevation got higher and magma was injected into weak areas of the surrounding summit. And as a result, this could result in permanent changes in locations and behavior. But all this within the caldera, within the summit region, no indications of any activity would occur outside of the summit. And in particular, rift zone continues to contract, indicating no magma entering that part of the system. So that's the important details there. This is all from today's update. This was all updates. This is like the one yesterday, similarly. Noting all this background of magma supply rate, of dike emplacement due to greater pressures, due to the growing, they call it vent elevation, but really it's the entire, it's the elevation itself, but also that the ground is filled in to close to that elevation, right? And yeah, so that's the one from yesterday. But I also want to come back to Monday's update, where even at that point in time, they saw strong glow and visible spattering with drainback events show magma has risen high in the north vent. Gas pistoning resuming, strong glow. They can see spatter and tremor. And this was back on Sunday night. And then it backed off again. And so here we are again on Thursday, and we just wait to see if it'll continue going or not. So without knowing how soon it'll actually come, I'm going to take this best guess from the USGS now for August 23rd as a start date. So let's just say that that's when it actually does start. In that case, that would make the pause following episode 30 just over 16 days long, which would make it the second longest pause of the entire eruption thus far. The longest one you can see was about 19 and a half days following 16 before 17. Second longest, if we don't count what we're in right now, was the last episode between 29 and 30. That was at 16 days. If we make it another 2 days, we'll be at 16 and a half also. But if we go the extra 4 days or 5 days that they say, then that could put us in the ballpark of being the longest episode pause thus far. So we'll see. I should draw a big question mark right here. This is all just what will it be, right? But trending like the last one to be one of the longest ones so far. And for comparison, we'll bring it to the pool graph of their pause durations and days. They did have sometimes like this period in here where they saw this increasing length of pause, but they, in their case, always reset, right, and went back to. So there wasn't any indication that that was coming close to the end, is what I'm trying to say here. If you're wondering, oh, is it getting longer? Because it's going to get longer and longer, eventually stop. Possibly, but really more importantly is what the magma supply is doing and how it's able to disperse that pressure and get out. And that may make a different situation at the Kīlauea Summit 2024-25 than we had at Pu'u'o all those decades ago. So that's the pause data right there. How does it currently look? Here's our current tilt. Well, maybe let me refresh it, give it few extra hours to show this more recent increase here that we've seen. Right, we've seen the increase in spatter glow here, but also the tilt's been going up over the last few hours here at the summit, shown in blue, whereas in the rift zone in green, it's still showing no effect whatsoever. So we'll see. Earthquake counts have been low within our range. Our background is about 30, so really it's been below background overall. Everything's kind of blown up and zoomed in. So not really much to highlight there. The biggest events were these yellow ones here, but if you come and look, they're the ones between Mauna Loa and Kīlauea, and we'll come to this a little bit later as well. Right, so south flank still active, south of the summit, but nothing really that alarming. So our laser rangefinder is pointing at the ground surface within the crater and shows when we have a big flood of lava raise at ground level. Here we see an increase of what turned out to be maybe 1.5 meters, 1.5 yards or so of ground surface rising. What else we can see is a long-term sagging of the ground, right? The ground actually lowering in elevation over time as it's degassing as well. On top of that, we also see this shorter-term tidal cycles where the actual tides are showing effect on the rock itself and causing that variation day to day right there as well. So a lot of different signals to average out and to sort through, but really, first order, here's how much lava came in, and here's that sagging in the crater. We can actually see it through the time lapses as well.
They're asking what that jump is in chat. What is that step up right there?
The jump right here, you mean, or this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is so the laser's pointing to the ground. A lava flow comes across the ground. The lava flow is this thick, so the laser measures a new surface that's atop of the lava flow now instead. So it's measuring the lava flow itself coming through. And because they're so gassy, you do see also this extra little peak here, right, where it actually kind of surges through really frothy, almost like a flash flood, and then it kind of settles down. And then that surface is hardened. Then it's also more slowly sagging over the next several days like that, right, to kind of put it in more detail right there.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and depending exactly where the flow, what flow, because this laser is pointing at one dot on the entire crater floor. And depending how any flow happens to go across it, if it's just one flow or two flows happen to go across it, or three flows or no flows, it'll show a different signal from episode to episode. Which is why it would be really nice to see lots of different dots out there and to measure them all in different relative terms. But even just the one is really cool to see. So here is the tilt for the last month. Here we are at a little deflation. Now we're inflating again, similar to what we saw prior to episode 30 right there. You see in that case, it took another few days even from that, right? If we're trying to analyze and match what we're seeing now, we might be in this coming out of the trough period, recharge period, but they have then restabilized, and it took a few more days until they also saw that rapid increase that led to the fissure coming up. And so we're seeing lava near the surface. Will it do the same thing? Who knows? If it follows the pattern, then it will take a little bit longer. But there's no reason that it has to follow the pattern. And it's just the only thing you have to go on, since it's behaving uniquely from one cycle to the next. There is a sand hill station. There's that extra little spike, which was a crack opening right there, but otherwise very similar signal. And earthquake counts. Here's our background at 30, so within that range. When you look at these, at the red line here, maybe the biggest jump might be an event right through here. That's going to be that yellow earthquake there. There's another set of them right through here. And those are, we'll come back to look at those. I think those are the south flank events, or the ones between Mauna Loa and Kīlauea here. So last 3 months, you can see how the last two have been different from all the ones previous to that. With really, like I keep saying, the only one that was similarly weird was this episode 17, which episode 16 and 17 here, where we had extra small fountains as well and extra long buildup and some similarities there. And if we want to use that as our analog and model. Then after we had that, we had another, what was that, 13 episodes, 12 episodes that went off like the previous ones, as if there was no change that had actually ever happened. Then it came to this new pattern we're seeing here. So we'll see how long can I keep it up and what might have to change to allow that to happen. Long-term earthquakes per week, just like we said in our summary here, we're down in this low, steady level that follows the beginning of the eruption in December. This is fascinating to me over here. This is the GPS measurement north and south across the caldera. So we've seen times where a crater is filling with magma, it's stretching out, we see the line go up really sharply. Then an eruption happens, it goes down really sharply, it starts recharging, and that's the pattern we typically see. So we've seen very steep rises. But then we have this current phase of summit fountaining, where we have this sawtooth pattern, where it's just going up and down, just like the tilt has been, but showing overall increasing range of extension and a greater span of extension also, right? So like what I'm trying to say is that this envelope right here is rising also, and within the envelope is getting wider at this right end than it was earlier, right? So we're seeing a bigger spread of it, but also it seems to be long-term extending, which this matches what we saw of that most recent INSAR in the last 6 days, where we see the ground sagging south of the summit. You see this here in this right end where you see the one data point. It seems to, it's almost like hooking over here. And this one starts to be hooking over as well, with the caveat that we have to always wait for these most recent data points to clear. But seeing a pattern here before that, right, and even see a little bit here, starting to happen, a little bit of a hook, a little bit of a hook, and depending exactly when it's captured, coincident with the episode or not. But on the rift zone, none of that, just straight contraction coming across here. So that's the fascinating signal. Didn't pull it up here. Let me pull this up right here. We have the 2-year GPS signals from the summit. And the reason I like to show these is not to go through all of this, but when we're looking at the signal at the summit and we're seeing the summit actually stretching further and further and further over time, to look at these summit stations like this one at the outlet. And without talking through everything, this lower panel is just the up and down component for the last 2 years of the outlet station. And you can see it's actually going downwards. And if I come to, what else have I got here? Byron's Ledge, the southeast part, steady, if not downward slightly. And those might be the two that we have presently. Down here at Ahua, south of the summit, also coming down, right? So even though we're seeing the GPS line extend further and further and further, it seems like the elevation is dropping, it's holding steady or dropping at the same time. So it's spreading apart rather than spreading apart and upwards. So it's not bulging so much as it is stretching, if that's a distinction I can make there. So that's a little bit different here than it was happening back through here where it really was bulging. So really fascinating. All this important thing being that is as wiggly as these blocks seem to be at the summit, there's showing no effect on the rift zone. That's what really matters here. Okay, so let me wrap up the monitoring signals here. Those are long-term 5-year plots. So let me move on from that there and jump to the earthquakes. So recent earthquakes, let's get this sized appropriately. All right, that's better. So we're looking at the last week here. We're coloring them by depth. There's our key. Reds are shallows and blues are deep all through there. So the deep blues through here, that's the Pahala hotspot. Feeder zone coming through. That feeds pathways to Kīlauea and Kīlauea, also Loihi, also known as Loihi, and Mauna Loa as well. So that's what the blue dots are. Kīlauea is showing a little bit of activity at the summit and south flank. These are slightly fewer events because we have a higher range filter on this map than our previous one here. Also shallow, we see here several things on Mauna Loa. So Mauna Loa summit's actually all the way up here. It also has this whole southeast flank. That's that whole side over there. But it leans against Kīlauea, which is over here. And what we've seen in the past is that when Kīlauea gets extra pressurized, then we can start seeing some friction, we'll call it, right? Some pressure releases from the spots in between the two mountains. This is something that we saw back in 2022 when Mauna Loa was ramping up to erupt. And Kīlauea eventually, when Mauna Loa got strong enough, it actually turned Kīlauea off. It does not seem like we've gone to that extreme quite yet here. We're just starting to show that, oh, if Kīlauea is to the point where it's pressurizing and maybe not getting out quite as easily, maybe that means that when Mauna Loa pushes against it, Kīlauea is not just budging and able to move and adjust and absorb that quite so easily anymore. Right? So more than anything, it shows Kīlauea being pressurized and Mauna Loa feeling it, is how I'll say it. But you're starting to see those signs more frequently now over the last few weeks that Kīlauea has been doing that here on the east side, the southeast side, and there's in the west. If I put it back, let's pull the whole last 4 weeks. You can see more what I'm talking about here. You see this whole population of oranges and reds now starting to occur on this side of the mountain here. And of course, if Mauna Loa is pressurizing within and pushing this way, it's also going to push this way. So not surprising to see some of these earthquakes also on the west side there. Right. So all that said, let me put it all in the same frame here. A couple more settling events further north, but that's showing the dynamics of the island here. So that we have a 2.9 event on the west side. This one was a 3.0 just above sea level here. So some decently sized events, nothing huge or extra alarming, but certainly you can suspect that there is more let's say that the magma filling Mauna Loa is more noticeable now because it's when it's pushing, the sides are not getting out of the way so easily, right? So we'll check in Mauna Loa here in a second because of this extra interest here, but for now, we'll switch to this other earthquake map and point out the largest events for the last week here. Deepest, Pahala, 20 miles down, 3.3 was the biggest one, followed by that 3.0 by Waiohino area all through here. This area as well is close to that 1868 earthquake sequence, magnitude 7.9, that we expect to have aftershocks for a long, long time. And by some theories, some of these events might even qualify and classify as aftershocks of that 1868 event, even though it was hundreds of years ago. So an area that's known to move and have earthquakes is at the very least. So those are the 2 threes. Everything else is below that. And so we'll move on from our earthquakes to wrap up with Mauna Loa here. Just a reminder, the most recent update from last week, a couple weeks ago of Mauna Loa, showing that seismicity recovered, overall relatively quiet. Everything is expected following a 2022 eruption. That's the long and short of it here. But to show you guys some signals, we'll come to the top here. There's a summit tilt. We're seeing the daily variations. It's kind of hard to see good signals on Mauna Loa through the tilt. Earthquakes at the summit, pretty light still, 23 in that little summit box over the last week. For the last month, we detect that earthquake spike from the end of July. And otherwise, we're seeing what looks like maybe like a slow rise in tilt here. And hard to say how much of that is the real volcanic signal compared to other seasonal cycles, what have you. I don't know if we have a wide enough view, and we don't have the analysis tools on this to compare the graphs here, but perhaps there's a chance that there is some volcanic signal creeping in here, showing some extra inflation. But if so, it's doing it without any of the earthquakes, because as you can see here, the earthquake plot is pretty bare. Earthquake rates per day, the max here is 7, so it's very, very, very few. And of these events, the one biggest event here they're showing, this yellow one, that's the one that corresponds to, that's my map. It corresponds to the west flank all the way over here. Okay. Little events in the summit over the last week. Here's a whole last month. And there's a whole last year. And so really not that many in the grand scheme of things, but it is showing that it is refilling, it is active, magma is going in there. And because of that, with Kīlauea adjusting now, would not be unusual to expect some extra earthquakes on its flanks. Otherwise, everything within expected range, nothing that abnormal. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. All right, Dane, cut myself off. Time for some questions
So
or
I
discussion.
did run a poll. Let me see if I can get that up again. Just figuring out when people expecting the next episode, and we did today up until midnight, tomorrow, the weekend, and then into next week. 40% think it's tomorrow that it's happening on the 22nd, followed by this weekend closely, then today. So 42%, 28%, 23%, and it's still changing. If you haven't got your votes in there, go ahead and check it out. So a lot of questions just been around the, what is the pistoning doing? Does that mean it's starting? Stuff along those lines. So we do have a donation just came through. Want to highlight a earthquake sim. Let me see if I can get it to come up. Here we go. It says, thank you for the updates. I finally went to see the lava fountain for the first time in my life. This will be so inspiring. Oh, I finally get to see the first. Oh, so this will be the one. Awesome.
Fingers crossed, earthquake sim. Fingers crossed.
Right. Looking like it's going to be there. We don't, if anybody wants to throw any questions in, but I don't think we really had any. Mostly stuff about what's happening with the audio too, which I still don't have an answer for. There was one question. I'm not sure. There was, can you tell me the location of Judd's Ledge? You heard of that before? Waldron's, maybe?
No. That's no. So it's hard without more information. It's hard to really know what Jana means there, right? The ledge, the Judd's Ledge. Does she mean Jeff Judd of today, where he's going to hang out to look at the eruptions?
Maybe.
Hanging out. And if so, then he probably wouldn't appreciate me sharing where we can go find him.
Right.
Blasting him publicly. But he does have an ancestor, right? That like was actually down in the pit of Hale Ma'u during one of these kind of piston cycles came up, and he had to like try to jump out of there, and had to get rescued from in there. And like he was a pastor, right? So one of his Hawaiian guides was part of his congregation, and felt like he didn't have a choice but to stay there and help him escape, even though his eyebrows were melting off his face as he was trying to reach his hand down and pull the guy up away from that pit. So there's that ledge also that when I hear Judd's and ledge, I think of that. Right. So that one's been long buried, destroyed, recovered, remade, everything. It's I can point to more or less where it was. It's down on that lava surface, in the pit now, but yeah, very different. A lot has changed since between then and now, and maybe that's a good enough answer and discussion, even if it's not quite what Jana meant. So, thanks for the question, Jana. And if you can ask more, then we can say it.
Yeah,
share some more here.
But I really don't see any other questions. There was one challenge for you. Say "Hale Ma'u" 3 times fast.
Hale Ma'u, Hale Ma'u, Hale Ma'u.
Got it. All right. Well, I think that does it. We're right at our hour and a half mark. Thank you for getting that all together. And, thanks everybody for sticking with us through the audio issues. Hopefully, I think they resolved themselves and we were kind of smooth since then with maybe a little hiccup, but not sure what that was about. I don't think it was on our end because our talk to each other has been seamless in the studio. So try and figure that out. Maybe not sure if we can though.
Yeah, we do appreciate our streaming provider, and they're actively working on stuff all the time, but sometimes that results in some bugs, and then we have to unplug it and plug it back in like everyone else does to fix things, right?
Right.
I'm glad that worked at least.
Yeah.
Well, it's looking kind of glowy in here, like the lava is rising again right now.
We've been having episodes, I think it was every 7 to 10 minutes. I'd have to look what Raven was posting. But Raven was timing it in the chat a little bit. But we've had a few of these cycles. Seems like the pretty cool activity. 7 minutes in between the cycles. I'm seeing.
Right on. Well, appreciate it. Yeah, thank you guys for sharing with us. Yes. We definitely appreciate everyone's input, watching out, and letting us know what things are going on. It's hard to keep eyes on everything all the time, right? We're a whole community that is learning how this works together. And we really hope that long term, what this really leads us to is that we can all be better prepared for the next disaster that happens on Hawaii Island when it comes into people's spheres, into their day-to-day lives, rather than just being like something we can go and visit and enjoy time to time, right? So at that point in time, you guys are going to be our army to help us to tell everyone what's going on and why and how it works and how often and where to look and who to believe. And, because that's what it really takes, is all of us working together, taking care of ourselves, right? That's how every disaster ultimately works. So the more we can grow our community, the more of you guys can be part of it. We appreciate all of you guys. Helps
and
us.
Highly encourage everybody to go to Hawaii Tracker on the Facebook group. That is the primary channel, the biggest channel that, with the YouTube, that's just us posting. With the Hawaii Tracker, you have 170,000 members that can potentially post, and a large amount of them on Hawaii Island. So you have a lot of eyes and ears out there and relevant information like the crane going down to Pohoiki. We knew that it was roughly the schedule of it, but we didn't know it was actually down there until somebody posted it on Hawaii Tracker, a photo of it being down there. And we're like, okay, set a clock. We now know, and that's just the crowdsourcing power and on a very small scale just today.
Yeah, perfect way to end it. Appreciate it, Dane. Thank you guys, all of you guys who have made it through an hour and a half, whether live or in replay. Mahalo all you guys. And yeah, unless something really unusual happens, we will be back at our usual time next week, Thursday, 5 o'clock Hawaiian time. Hopefully we'll have episode 31 to talk about. And if we're talking about it on Thursday, it'll have happened in the same pattern, like in the crater, all of that. If something really weird happens, we will jump in. We're kind of an extra alert for that too. If something random were to happen, like let's say, in my dream, something cracks open on a crater rim or something, right? And it cascades down into the crater and something spectacular out of fall. We'll be here for that. But if it's just about, the similar pattern as we've seen before, most likely Thursday, 5 p.m. Hawaiian time. Appreciate all you guys.
Yeah.
Final thoughts, Dane?
I think, we'll be watching tonight, and check out, if you want a message, check out the subscribe list. I'll put a link to it up on the screen now, and we will be probably sending out a message in the next couple days, if not sooner, when this thing finally gets past its pre-cool activity and into the main phase.
All right. So I appreciate all of our crew, even those not on screen today. But for tonight, for Dane DuPont, I'm Philip Ong. Aloha, everybody. Until next week.